Hello, everybody. I'm Patrick Abbott, and today we're going to start the panel Catholics in Space, not by doing an introduction, but by doing an introductionary question. Ooh.
Ooh.
So I'll
We're
start.
Catholics in Space. Shouldn't we start with a prayer?
All those who
Name of
went
the
to
Father.
Vigil Mass yesterday, raise your hand.
We went to Mass this morning.
Ooh.
7:30. Woohoo! Rocket.
Religious science fiction and fantasy ranges from overtly Christian, like The Shack or Left Behind, to more allegorical works like C.S. Lewis, to more Christian-inspired epics like J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, to incense punk that tackles religion in a harder environment. Who are you, and where do your stories fit on that broad spectrum?
Ooh. Okay, my name is Ann Lewis, former president of the Catholic Writers Guild and one of the founders. I ran the Catholic Writers Conference for about 10 years. I also write science fiction and fantasy, and I'd say I like the C.S. Lewis Space Trilogy, so I kind of put myself next to him because I also can be shelved next to him because my last name is Lewis, and I married into that name. I was very happy to marry into that name. I think, well, that's about it.
Tolkien. So I'm Catholic now. I'm certain that I'm Catholic because I read The Lord of the Rings when I was 11, and it started me on the journey of finding out the reality that he was describing. I'm also a medievalist because of reading Tolkien. And I'm happy now that there's actually a good deal of scholarship coming out that is showing the way in which Tolkien's stories are intimately grounded in his own, not just his faith, right, but his liturgical practice and his formation by the Birmingham Oratory. And we will have St. John Henry Newman as a saint soon, right? You know these things, right, as dates. So I'd say all of these things are, you have to imagine them always with me surrounded by Tom Bombadil singing the stories of creation.
Hi, I'm Sarah Pierzchala. My series, Beyond Cascadia, is probably, I wouldn't say it's influenced by anyone in particular, but maybe Lewis is the closest in that it's science fiction, but I'm bringing more of a sort of a transcendent feel to it, I hope, in places. Sometimes it's more overt, sometimes not.
And as I said before, I'm Patrick Abbott with my main series, Fallen. I would say it's closer to Out of Silent Planet. It's basically PTSD afflicted veteran who kind of, the broad theme is where is he and where is God during a first encounter experience. And then the Savannah Paranormal Detective Agency is where is God and a humorous Lovecraftian tale. But the first question. Religion frequently is depicted in mainstream stories either as backwards beliefs for the hero to overcome or as a chosen one prophecy, a la Dune. How do you portray religion in fiction, especially if you touch it, futuristic Catholicism?
Okay, well, I did some Sherlock Holmes pieces, and in those, I actually wrote in the head of the Pope at one point. So, Catholics are Catholics, and that's just kind of what they are in the 19th century. As for my science fiction trilogy, it's kind of weaved into the world because my people are, how do I describe them? We call them Nephilim, but they're not. They're kind of like they're people who have been cursed doubly. Well, we have the curse of
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve, right? Original sin. I'm sorry, I still need the rest of this, my coffee. But yes, when it's original sin, they actually doubled that. So when they start to sin, they start to turn into physical demons. But it's a look at original sin and the choices you make to destroy your own life through mortal sin. So yeah, but it's more subtle. It's not. It's weaved into the world, not so much an oblate, obvious Catholicism.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Religion is frequently depicted in mainstream stories either as backwards beliefs for the hero to overcome or a chosen one prophecy. How do you portray religion in fiction in your works?
Okay, so setting up with saying that trying to do what Tolkien did, which was to give you the fundamentally religious and Catholic and so forth, as he said, but the feel, what it's like from within to see the world as the creature. And so I think Draco Alchemicus, the poem that we're working on, and Aurora Borealis are both exercises in trying to write like Tolkien, in the sense of write from within this understanding of creation and our participation in it as sub-creators, so the artist world and such. The fallenness is also there, particularly in Draco Alchemicus, and this, I was thinking about this in the AI conversation. Our dragon has been revealed to us as the further we work on it. We started with him looking at himself in the crystal mirror of the tower. You can see it in the poster. That he is reflecting himself, this AI mirror. We realize that hell, that the act in the story in which they're going to be after the crucifixion, with our Lord not yet resurrected, is a spaceport. and it's going to be that feeling of utter abandonment and loss of what it's like being part of the creature that we are in fact made to participate in. So it's hopefully doing like Tolkien did. Not the characters are not explicitly talking theologically, but the feel of the story should show you the truth of the revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Since my series is set probably about 50 years into the future, wait, is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. It's pretty much what we're dealing with now as far as geopolitical things and the suppression of different religions and how different religions are interacting, and that's kind of what we see now, currently played out a bit more, and that's kind of like the middle layer, the setting, the actual characters, the actual plot. I guess you could say the closest thing to a chosen one would be showing how God gives grace to certain people in different ways to change them, and so there's like conversion stories without a whole lot of sermons and stuff, but still. And then the next layer behind that is the actual transcendent of showing, what the grounding is of my beliefs and how these things work and filter out in the characters' lives.
And for myself, I really pulled from experiences on deployment where especially other people, I'm going to make a grunt up, but say you have a soldier from Kansas who goes to Iraq and wants to, I'm in Iraq now, let me talk to the Muslims. I'll read a little bit and talk to the local Muslim. And there were incidents like that where Muslims would go to their chaplain in the Iraqi service and say, all of a sudden these Christians are talking a lot about the Quran. What's going on? It's weirding me out. And so there's all these little stories and vignettes you can pull in, and just how people would actually experience each other, the aliens and humans, after the initial first contact, get to know each other, and the weirdness and figuring out each other's religions almost on a humorous basis of stumbling over each other. So we're going to take it a little bit away from our works and now do what I call the Pope Leo question. What are the next big science fiction issues Christianity will face in reality, whether in the immediate sense or 50 or 100 years from now? And how will the Catholic Church or Christian communities confront it?
So what are we going to face in the future in terms of appearing in science fiction? Well, I think it's almost, because I'm active, or in the Catholic Writers Guild, it seems like we're siloed. That we are writing books and selling books to the same, to our, almost preaching to the choir, and we really want to, we don't really have to get published outside of, Catholic publishers don't publish fiction by and large. There's a couple, Chrism Press is putting out books, and they have some beautiful, wonderful books. If you haven't seen, there's one called Mark Maker by Mary Woods that I just adore that book. There's books that are by, now I'm blanking on her name. It'll come to me later. But Karina Fabian Space, she has the Rescue Sisters in Space. She wrote one called Discovery that I totally recommend. but these are not public, and I think that chrism is probably starting to bridge into the general populace, but it's hard to get out of a silo. And first of all, and also, Christian publishers don't like the Catholics. They don't want us in general. I mean, there are some publishers that have come to us and said, you guys got some really good writers, and so we have had them, like we at my writers conference, we had publishers come and hear pitches, and so we had some that were Christian publishers that were open to Catholics writing for them, but you couldn't be overt. If mine probably would cross over into a Christian publisher because it's subtle enough, I think, to a certain extent, but generally, no. I mean, I know that they wouldn't, my Pope, the one story that I wrote with Sherlock Holmes and the Pope and stuff like that, that was the Church Mysteries of Sherlock Holmes, sorry, it's called Murder in the Vatican, the Church Mysteries of Sherlock Holmes, that's the long title, was carried by Ignatius Press in their catalog. And it became a bestseller for my publisher. It's the one that sold the most of any of my books, and of any of their books. And I just know that there was a whole lot of people who are not Catholic that loved that book. So it went pretty far. And that was one way to do it, is because I took a popular character and teamed him up and put the story, that way. But it's kind of hard to bridge over into the secular press and also into regular Christian fiction channels. You're siloed.
So I heard the question a little differently. And I'm also affected by what we were just talking about in the AI thing. The AI is a huge problem. I mean, all of the biological sciences are huge problems. The artificial wombs. I mean, we've done that with Brave New World and things like that. I mean, I think what's interesting about our problem as Christians is it's always this. I'm sorry, I'm going to just sound. I'm not going to mention Beowulf, but it's always the same problem.
Do it.
Beowulf, which is the reality of the incarnation. And I'd say with Tolkien was absolutely in love with the sacrament, in love with the sense of being in time and our Lord becoming incarnate. He said that the Mass was the great drama, and I think there's so many ways that the Lord of the Rings is in fact a narrative about the liturgy. I mean, everybody looks at the things like the crawling through the trenches to get to the volcano, to throw the ring in as a penitential, carrying the cross and so forth. But for me, always the great story that we're trying to tell as Christians is the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And I think, the AI is actually, interesting and terrifying, because what body does it have? It's a body of sand and of, wires and metal and things like that. And in our McLuhan meditations, we're also always trying to think about, well, we're out of this materiality. Who are we? Well, we're always in this incarnate world, and the dragon of the story is always trying to make us believe that it can give us power over all of that. It's always the same story. I don't find myself changing. But what we're trying to show in Draco Alchemicus is the temptations keep ramping in different ways, right? It's in advertising, it's in alchemy, it's in, I think, the AI and the spaceport, but it's over and over and over the same one. Do you realize who you are as God's creatures, and embrace the reality that the creator of everything entered into our creation and suffered with us? And I don't see that we ever are, we're always trying to show that story because that's the central mystery of the gospel.
I think that since the Catholic Church was the biggest voice against artificial contraception and abortion, that we're kind of well placed to face the next wave of reproductive technology issues, which I think that's going to be the biggest thing coming much sooner than 50 years. The surrogacy, IVF, the artificial wombs, those aren't going to be working quite as well as people expect as soon. But the other techniques are there and in use, and most of society seems to go, well, that's great, because you say it's human from conception. Let's get all these embryos into these women and and have big families that way, I guess. I know the owner of a large social media platform who seems to think that's a great idea in his own personal life, and so he's like, hey, what's wrong? This is the way to fix this. And it's just the turning people into products is, I think that's going to be the next big battle of saying, no, you can't do that. Even if your intentions are good, you can't do that. And I don't know how well it's going to play. People are going to go, well, what's wrong with you? You're being mean. So we have to be prepared for that. And so that technology does play a big part in my series. So I have done a lot of research, and I think that's one of the reasons why I don't sleep very well. Seeing things that it's like this could happen. It's like we're almost there. But the church has always been the one to kind of stand and say, no, don't do this.
Well, these are great answers. I think I misunderstood the question.
You actually, so I was going to interrupt you, but then I realized you were addressing the follow-on question.
So you can answer the second one
I'm
first.
sorry.
So
Answer the
if
second
you
one
want a
first.
chance to answer the question I have.
The answer to the question at hand, I think, was it, the seer from Fatima, Sister
Lucia?
Sister Lucia. She said the next battle against Satan will be against the family. And that's certainly happening now, and I think you're right, that's where it's going to go for us. We're going to be on the front lines of dealing with how human beings are being used as commodities and produced as commodities. You don't have children because God gives them to you. You have them because I want one. And if that one is not the one you want at the particular time you want it, then you can just throw it away. So that's, where we are. We're a throwaway culture in all levels, and it's only going to get more interesting from here.
And I'm on a personal mission with my wife and friends to show the movies that influenced my life and say, see, they weren't just 80s and 90s movies, they actually address today. And one of my favorite was at the time the underrated Gattaca, which is
Gattaca's great.
about genetic engineering and how people are treated if they're not genetically engineered. There's official legal equality, but there's all these insurance laws and everything, so nobody really wants to hire people not genetically engineered unless they're janitors. And so what I see especially, because the church is good at telling the truth, the problem is so much of the church, when it comes to pastoral care, goes beyond mercy and trying to water it down to the point of contradicting the truth. And especially in areas like Europe, some of the areas in the United States, how will the church confront when people are just openly doing this, and open discrimination, open geneticism, eugenics even on the next level? It's going to be a real big hurdle for the church to go over, and I don't even touch that in my books. It's kind of a too deep topic for me.
Well, I think our Lord said, if you are lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. And I think ultimately, it was Pope Benedict that said that the church is going to get smaller, but it'll be more faithful. And I think that that's what's going to happen. It's going to be pressed against the wall, and those who, we're going to be cornered, I think, and you're going to have to make a choice. Either you're with it or you're against it, and I think that's kind of where we're headed. Also, Cardinal George also said, my successor, well, we don't think Sufich is going to die. Die in prison. We don't know, but he did say that one of his successors will, certainly die in prison. And he goes, I'm going to die in my bed, which he did. and he said, my successor is going to die in a prison, and then the next successor will die.
He meant that because it was being of oppression, not because of something.
Oppression. Correct, of oppression.
I think you've given the wrong
Ultimately,
impression
he's saying that, I'm giving the wrong impression. I didn't mean to do that. But yes, he's saying that ultimately our calling will be to martyrdom, as it was in the beginning. And the church is going to get to that point again, before the end of this.
Well, one of the things that happened right before 2020 and all the COVID stuff was I had taught a course on virtues and vices. And we were reading, from Confucius through the Old Testament, the New Testament. We read Numbers. With Thomas Aquinas, I happily had a Dominican in the class who was they were able to shepherd us through. And we read, he had us focus particularly on Thomas's discussion of fortitude and how you don't know you're strong until it's the moment, right? And certainly, you know, we've had like miniature, the COVID debate in miniature was the big debate that we're dealing with, which was, you know, we as the scientists are going to, whatever they are, we are going to manage you, which is the deal that science has made since the New Atlantis, since Bacon. You know, we're going to re-engineer the world, and it's all going to be powerful. It's more wizardry and mysticism of power. And what the lockdowns and the vaccines and the mandates were all, you know, we can manage you better. And there's great stuff coming out now saying, you know, like it was herd management. We're going to treat you like cattle. We're going to vaccinate you because, you know, the herd might die. Never mind, you might die because of what we're doing to you, but the herd needs to be protected. And, you know, that I said in last night's discussion that one of the, you know, things on the culture war that I had was standing up against the mandates at my employer, at my university, and, you know, holding to the religious exemption against this forced vaccination project. If you stood up against that, you know what we happily didn't end up in prison at that point, but some people wanted to throw us in prison or fire us or tell us that we were not allowed to even declare our own physical, you know, bodies exempt from this management. And people are going to hear it as management. They're going to you made grandma die. You're dangerous. So right, but fortitude is, you know, the virtue is to hold up against it to that moment. And I've had a lot of meditations over the last several years of, you know, am I still standing under the cross if I run away?
Now this one I'm looking at you. Oh, do you have something?
No, I don't need to.
Okay.
Okay.
This one I'm looking at.
Look at me. Okay.
Do the publishing.
Look at me.
The best-selling list in Christian fiction on Amazon is predominantly romance, while Christian science fiction on Amazon is dominated by end times apocalyptic fare, some of it being romance. What are ways Christian fiction authors can tap into an audience if these authors aren't writing these subgenres?
Okay, so this is kind of tough. I think you have to find the right publishers and the right connections. One thing the Catholic Writers Guild was founded to do was to help writers, Catholic writers, you know, gain connections, okay? And that's why we did the Writers Conference, is to have publishers come in and hear pitches. Unfortunately, all Catholic publishers at the time did not do fiction. So we had, I think over time they started realizing we've got some really good writers here. So Ignatius Press started picking up some of the writers, not too many, but we had some fiction coming out of Ignatius Press, which is the largest Catholic publisher. It's the Pope's publisher. And then you had, but then you had also Christian publishers, like Chrism Press is a subsidiary. I can't remember what the main publisher is. But they said, they realized, okay, we have this audience for more interesting fiction, and they recognized like great pieces of fiction that were Catholic in nature, like Canticle of Leibowitz. You know, you have these wonderful books that were published and they said, well, you know what, we can create a subsidiary that focuses on that type of fiction. So it's Orthodox and Catholic fiction. But some of the stuff, I mean, like I mentioned Mark Maker, I totally recommend that book. It's Jennifer, Karen Ulo, she's another wonderful author. So, but they've started publishing all of this wonderful fiction, and in fact, I'm probably going to send my books up to them. And I think to try to bridge the gap, I think Christian fiction started to collapse a little bit. And the reason why I say this is when I was president of the Catholic Writers Guild, and I think my friend Karina, who's president now, she gets emails from the Christian Writers Association wanting us to come and be a part of their conference, which is weird because that never happened before. And so I was like, well, why are you asking us? Because we're like, you didn't want us before, but now they seem to want us. And I'm like, okay. You know, would they put us off in a little corner? Well, probably. But I don't know what that was about. We were a little cautious with it, but we have spoken to him a couple times. So I think as the culture war gets even more heated up, Christians in general are starting to realize we have more in common than we don't, and we need to team up on some of these issues that fight the culture war, and which is why I think that they came to us to have us join them. So I think there might be a bit more of a warming trend. I mean, we'll never get rid of these dogmatic issues between us, I don't think. I mean, that takes a lot of prayer and a lot of humility, and I think humility is going to be the biggest part of that. We've all hurt each other. So coming together to at least find common ground in Christ and to fight the culture war from that ground, that might be starting to occur. Don't know. It's warming. I think when you press to the wall, I think ultimately it will come down to that.
Yeah. So I guess the best example I have for answering that question is what I did with my class, the students in writing Christian poetry. And you were asking, like, what can we do other than romanticy and apocalypticism? For that class, and the book is on the table, their assignment was simply 50 stanzas, 8 lines each, iambic pentameter. Christian theme, go. Right? And what was interesting was all the stories are magnificent. I mean, Evita wrote hers about her family and being persecuted by in the Spanish Civil War. Others wrote meditations on the Rosary. Some wrote conversion stories. One wrote a beautiful allegory about his father's death in a hurricane. That the requirement was something Christian, but I didn't tell them what counted as Christian, that they seemed to find it because I gave them the form of iambic pentameter, 8-line stanzas, and that we practiced on the Psalms and things like that. So one of the ways maybe out of the tropes of the narratives, although the tropes of the narratives are ours, right? It's Draco Chemicus is a love story, and it's, I don't know whether it's apocalyptic or not, but it's got a dragon, right? But the form of beauty and precision and structure and aesthetics, that may be one of the ways that people find the Christian stories again, because as Tolkien showed us, we make still in the law by which we're made, right? We're called to make art and beauty, and the stories come out of that.
I'm probably the worst person to ask anything to do with genres and trends or niches. I don't know, just write something really good, I guess, that has, maybe you're saying a lot of apocalyptic romance.
It's a thing. It really is.
I'm not
it
sure
is a
how,
thing.
well, I guess it's got hope in it, because romance implies it's going to continue.
The world's
There's-
ending,
yeah.
the Antichrist is rising, but dang, he looks good without a shirt on.
Okay.
You
No,
can
I
save him.
think
That belongs in the previous What the Frack panel.
I will say this for other genres and stuff. In the Catholic Writers Guild, we have several writers groups that go on online, and the largest critique group by far, with about 35 members, and they have to break it into 2 sessions minimum, is the science fiction and fantasy writing group. So we have a lot of Catholics writing this, and whether they're all getting published, one is doing is it RPG based fiction?
Yep. Lit RPG.
Lit
yeah.
RPG. That's what it is. Thank you very much. And he's selling. So I'm like, okay, I guess you got to find the right genre to kind of connect in. And that's, we have people writing horror. Believe it or not, like Dracula, and those things are very Catholic in nature. They're very dark. It's like a flip side of so we have some
Give
people
me 5 minutes. All genres are Catholic.
Right.
You're going to need more than 5. You're going to take more
We
than
have
5
science
minutes.
fiction, fantasy people writing that, and we have some people writing romance. One of my friends wrote a wonderful romance in Rome with the Swiss Guard, which that's also, is that Chrism? I think that might be Chrism Press too. So beautiful stuff is coming out. So people are doing it. I mean, we're doing our best to try to get them the connections, and we have 2 literary agents now. which kind of that are working with us. So it's kind of nice to actually have. That was one of our goals from the beginning. We need literary agents and we need publishers to come out and to work with us. And so it's starting to happen. It's taken us about 10 years, but we got it.
So we're going to do 2 questions in sort of a lightning round. You can take it in either order. You can answer one and pass, then come back to you.
Okay.
But what piece of advice would you give writers out there, whether Catholic or Christian or not? And 2, what's your favorite portrayal of a fictional religion in science fiction or fantasy? Go.
Okay, first one is the first bit of advice, finish it. All right, the other one is, what was the second question?
Favorite portrayal of a religion in fiction?
Pass on that one, I'll come back, go.
The quick answer, learn to scan, right? Like we were writing poetry, and it's the bigger version of that is hone your craft. Because we were talking about with the AI, and it's not really writing elegantly anymore. The word became flesh, learn your craft. And I forgot what the question, the second one was.
Favorite portrayal of religion in a piece of fiction, science fiction or fantasy preferred?
I've already answered that one, Lord of the Rings.
I just say be consistent and do not count on the initial burst from your muse to carry you through without putting in a lot of effort, and just be consistent. And favorite portrayal of a religion. I'd have to say, and I think I probably mentioned this last year, I'm really impressed with Gene Wolfe, what he did in the Book of the New Sun.
Gene Wolfe is wonderful.
So.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to come back. See, I had to think about it a while. Best portrayal. One story that really moved me, and I love Lord of the Rings. I love, of course, C.S. Lewis. I love those. But there was a short story I read once called Brother Jubal in the Womb of Silence. It's a short story, and it appeared in an anthology called Infinite Space, Infinite God, and I'd love for this
I love
person.
that one.
Yeah, and this particular, it's a monk who basically he's a hermit. Okay, he's a hermit, and he doesn't want his time. When you're a hermit, is to spend time alone with God. Okay, so he didn't want to go out of this, and so he's on the moon. He's on the moon, but he has to. God calls him out of there, realizing that your job as a Christian is not to just be alone with me, but it's to take me to the outside world. And it's a brilliantly written short story, and it was beautiful.
What's the anthology title?
Infinite Space, Infinite God. And I know my friend Karina still has copies in her room, so if you want a copy, I can give you
So
her.
I would recommend that, and I'm going to double tap that book for portrayal. The one that dealt with basically a Martian Amish colony.
Oh, that was good too.
Yeah, and the twist at the end, it's worth it. My piece of advice, I don't know if I see him right here, but I'll throw him under the bus. Do a Rob Corsi. Reach out to people, network, just look around. We wouldn't all be here cross-pollinating each other without Rob, so thank you for that. And that's how you grow. We're not in competition with one another. We don't have to even write the same sort of things. You can work with religious, you can work with secular. That cross-promotion lifts all boats. So that's my piece of advice. Now, the final question before we go to audience questions. You're outside. It's a beautiful fall night, full moon, just enjoying life. All of a sudden, a giant light comes down, making woo-woo-woo-woo sounds. And from there is an entity, tall, lanky, wrapped around eyes, very little mouth. What do you do?
Say hello.
I'd probably faint.
Probably say, well, Clatu Prodictive. Well, if he had, actually, probably Brother Guy. I can't say his last name. He's from the Vatican Observatory. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay,
Would you
Brother
baptize
Guy.
an alien?
Would you baptize an alien? He said he would baptize an alien. If they want him to baptize, he'd baptize him because he doesn't know if it applies to them or not. So I would just say hello, welcome, and how's it going? How's it hanging? What do you need? This is pretty much what I'm just a friendly person by nature. Then he'd shoot me dead. So
I'd probably be spending the time trying to get my dog to stop barking.
if I wasn't running away in pure fear, I'm a dot your I's, cross your T guy. I'd be, hey, let me just get this holy water out. Just gonna try it out. Oh, you're not melting? Okay. And if you are melting,
that's a
we
good
got bigger
point.
problems. So just making sure. Now we can go to audience questions.
I think I'm your, you guys all nice. It's over, dude. Some alien shows are gonna all nice.
You can't be here, son. This is my job.
I already mentioned the Dominicans. My dog is barking.
Thanks a lot. So my selfish comment and then question has to do with who would publish me. And the criteria is interested in religious themes in fiction, not interested in a Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox divide. And also a fair amount of, a certain literary level cutoff, so we're not going for the the lowest common denominator. And in short fiction, I know what the answer, where to go for markets for that. So I think it'd be really worth mentioning the 3 places that I go to, which is Mysterion, MysterionOnline.com, Silence and Star Song, and most recently Incense Punk, the editor of whom I've met because he lives in Lansing, which is a half hour that way, and then I'm another hour past him. So, but the question is, where's the place for novels? And if we could list off the kinds of organizations or publishing houses that are interested in that stuff.
Well, in terms of like if you're not going straight Christian or Catholic, you can do secular. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't. The only, you kind of look at the houses that are publishing fiction in general, and you'd have to get a regular literary agent to represent you to those houses. And there's a literary agent search site now. You don't really necessarily have to buy the Writer's Market anymore, or you could, but the oh gosh, what's the name of the literary agent website? I'm blanking on it. You just
I'll look it up.
No, but there is. It's a search
Is anyone
engine.
really looking for a literary agent at this point, though?
If you're going for secular press, still, yes, it's an old model.
I'm
And
not
I
sure.
don't think, you can also self-publish, or you can go with, actually, you know who I would recommend you send it to? He does more military fiction than, it's Chris Kennedy Publishing. Chris Kennedy? Okay, that's one I might send it to, because he has, they were going to take mine, but I hadn't finished book 3, and I still haven't finished book 3, so I'm kind of pulling it back, I think, and I'm going to give it to Chrism. But I think Chris does a wonderful job with promoting his books, and he is accepting of religious themes in his books that he publishes, and he publishes a lot. Okay, a lot. So he might be someone you can send it to. He's got a group of readers that read for him, and then they pass it on.
Thank you. Next question.
What a lovely panel. Full disclosure, I am a Lutheran, so
We'll talk slow first.
You're not
appreciate that.
comfortable with the oral tradition.
It's all right. We got it.
Danke. So my question is somewhat humorous, but you mentioned Bram Stoker's Dracula, obviously great Catholic fiction, and also great, urban
It's
fantasy or
creepy.
paranormal Gothic fiction. But there's also John C. Wright's Superluminary, which on the surface,
John Wright. He's a wonderful author. If you guys, go ahead.
which appears to be hard science fiction in the tradition of the Culture series, but when you look under the hood, it's actually also vampire fiction. And then there's also Vampires, and its somewhat companion novel Armor by John Stakely. What is it with Catholics and vampire fiction? Is this the new gold mine that authors should be seeking to mine out?
So I'll just quickly say, vampires are cool. It's a bottomless well. You can go either the religious route, the restrained sexuality route, whatever you want. And even Bram Stoker himself was Church of Ireland Anglican. But when you bring in all the elements of the Anglo-Catholic tradition that borrows from the Catholic tradition of the Eucharist, the holy water, everybody loves the eccentricities, the sacramentals, the little extras. And nobody goes to the ELCA youth pastor if a ghost is inhabiting your fridge. It's like, we get the Catholic Church.
We'll get an old priest that does it in Latin.
Yeah, if he doesn't have candles, he's not trying. It's just that cool asceticism, I think.
A great book that you might want to try is Jennifer the Damned by Karen Ulo. It might turn, yeah, you might turn she's a Catholic vampire, and she basically just the nuns adopt her, and she drinks the Eucharist, and that's the only thing she can have. So I think yeah.
So a lot of layers in the answer to this, but I think one of the things that vampires do is carry tradition. I mean, that they're old, right? And so one of the series that has a vampire in it who is Catholic, which is Discovery of Witches, which is also written by an academic. She did all her research on John Dee and Elizabethan science and alchemy. And her vampire character, of course, meets the main character witch in the Bodleian Library. So you have another sort of scholarly moment. But it's interesting because it's quite subtle and gentle, and it stayed in the television series. It's amazing, right? He's still Catholic in the television series, made in Britain, in Cardiff, filmed in Wales. So, but I think it's because he carries all the history. And the historian loves that because he knows he can take her to his family castle and things like that. But I think the big difference between the feeling of being in the Catholic tradition for me and what I had before I converted and was Presbyterian is you're not attached to any of that, right? The historian is attached to all of the story. And the vampire, at least the way Harkness did that in Discovery of Witches, the vampire carries the ability to know the fullness of the story.
And also, another series I'd recommend is, Declan Finn, which is romance. Love at First Bite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Always comes back to romance.
Always comes back to romance.
Yeah, I was going to second Declan Finn's suggestion. I haven't read that series yet, but I know it involves Catholic vampires. And I think that there's two others, and I don't know the names. So I think one was Ignatius Press, and I think it involved a Dominican.
Yeah, it has
vampire
the cover
hunter. Yeah,
graphic
and then
drawing.
one that has just been published or is going to be published by a young Daughters of the St. Paul Press.
Daughters of
nun.
St. Paul.
Yeah, I think
Pauline
she has
Press.
one coming out. I don't know anything about it.
They do.
But as far as the
It's
pop,
probably young adult, because they
Yeah.
do young adult. They
as
don't
far as
do-
the popularity, the evergreenness, the immortality of the themes, I second what Patrick said about that. 'Cause that's cool, and we got cool stuff, and
Tell you what, in movies, they love our stuff. They use our stuff. I mean, they love the big crucifix and all the smells and bells and all the holy water in the super soaker.
I actually did some actual research for this panel. Jim Clark's book on Catholicism and science fiction was a very interesting meditation. And one of the things this didn't come up, your questions didn't bring this up, how much in the Anglophone tradition Catholicism stands as the sort of haunting for the Protestant narrative in both terms of superstition, right? The Catholic is always the superstitious layer of the thing that the modernity is fighting, and then anti-science. So when first Catholics in space is like, what Catholic science fiction? We're always the bad guys in the story. And Clark actually, he has a nice discussion of why that is, the themes of the robots and the exotheology, right? You baptize the alien if it shows up, and other things in there. So for actual science fiction and Catholicism, his book was an interesting read.
I see Gail with a microphone in her.
I know there's other people that have questions too, so I want to try to move it along a little bit. I'm going to go to the science fiction part. Even when you look at people like C.S. Lewis and his amazing, space books, which he hated that you call them that, but he kind of picked and chose, even the great C.S. Lewis, which parts of the historic Christianity that he wanted to embrace and which parts he did not. But as Catholics, we don't have that. At least in theory, we don't have that luxury. We have a church that we're supposed to profess. So I'm wondering what you think as authors of when you're looking into the future as a speculative future Catholicism. How much do you feel, or do you think authors should have leeway to kind of see how the developed doctrines might develop in the future, and versus how much they have to feel like it has to be what is in the Catechism of the Catholic Church right now to get an imprimatur from their bishop?
All right, well, it's a great question. We've actually had some wonderful discussions on this in the science fiction writers group about development of doctrine or whatever. And I think we kind of said, let's not speculate where the church can go in terms of religious learning. We can create new saints, though, which is a lot of fun. My friend Karina created a new saint who was she was a religious nun who worked to save people in space who were in dire situations, and she created her whole religious order around her called the Rescue Sisters, who go out into the space and they work with rescue missions and things like that. And so it's kind of wild to have nuns in space. She does a really great job with creating coming up with new saints, and I think that we can go. You can safely do that, but if you're a professing Catholic, I don't want to speculate on that. We really don't develop new doctrines, not truly. Most of it is a revision. We look at, like John Paul II's theology of the body, for example. It really isn't anything new. It's what the church has always taught. He's just saying it another way so that we can understand it. That's what his whole, theology of the body was a series of Wednesday audiences where he talked about, what can we learn from our physical form and the nature of God in that. And it wasn't that he said anything that the church hasn't taught in the past. And I think that that's the church. The Pope is the keeper of tradition and learning in the church, right? So he's not going to tell you anything that the church hasn't necessarily taught, because it's there. Revelation has already been given us. So what is he teaching us through theology about it? He's giving us just another way of looking at ourselves in what has already been given us.
And now we're going to, just so we can get more questions, next
Yes,
question.
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on.
All right, so full disclosure, I'm not a Lutheran or not a Catholic. I'm an atheist.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I am writing a series of books that deals with real people, and real people are religious.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in particular, I delve into a bit of theology in book 2 relating to the marriage bond. And in book 5, I intended to delve very deeply into all of it, including the structure and the workings of the Roman Catholic Church. How do I get that right?
So, Sarah, do you want to answer that?
Well, you'll have to befriend somebody who sort of knows what they're doing and is willing to help you. And I've actually, I know several writers who are also not Catholic. They're either Baptist or evangelical or Jewish, and they've reached out to me, not as a sensitivity reader, but it's like, did I get this right, or what would I do here? And I give advice. And usually, I'm sure you'll be able to find somebody who'd be really happy to work with you, even find a priest.
So, next question, Rachel. Oh, if you can answer that without using the word Beowulf.
Which question? How to learn? Oh,
Next question.
Okay, I'll get the next question.
This is since I'm not Catholic as well, when I wrote the Planet of the Baptist story, I made sure that my Catholics were aliens.
See. I'm not sure that's a question.
We are aliens.
Not sure that's a question or a critique.
No. Any other questions?
Red hat.
Yeah,
sorry.
The man in red waving his hand.
So I know some fiction is sort of Catholic, but kind of hidden. Like Tolkien's was sort of Catholic under the hood, and in John Wright's current StarQuest series, his Jedi are space Catholics, but to put a thin veneer where it doesn't tell you it's actually Catholicism and stuff. What do you think about that in fiction? Like, you know, to not offend people who are turned off. Some science fiction fans are turned off by explicit mentions of Christianity. What do you think of that?
That's a perfect question.
That one, I can do that one. Beowulf. It's the problem of conversion, right? And that's, I mean, one of the interesting things about Beowulf is it's written by a Christian. We know it has to have been written by a Christian and because of writing as a technology, right? And the timing of when the stories are available and things like that. Anglo-Saxon England is a wonderful place of study about how do you show people the truth of the story. One, when they have no access to it otherwise, right? You're talking to them. How do they, you know, like they're not in Rome. Well, they know what Rome is and they go to Rome a lot. But that all Christian literature is gospel, right? It's an exercise in conversion, and that's interesting about it when you're worrying about being siloed and, you know, other people not reading our stuff. And it's like, we should always be talking to the world because I mean, we have contemplative and devotional works as well that are, you know, prayerful but if we're not figuring out new ways to evangelize, we're not doing what we're called for. And so, for example, I've spent a lot of the last year writing about St. Francis. Francis was brilliant at it, right? He used vernacular songs in his melodies in his prayer life. He went out there into the towns and did performance art, right? And you know, when the Pope says go roll in the mud with the pigs, he does, and he comes back and says, I obeyed you, okay now? Right. The problem is the creativity of our speaking of the story is a part of the thing that we're called to.
Take it away, Rob.
Okay. We're going to have to end things there. Thanks, Patrick
you.
and panelists.
Thank you all.